Okay, so today's conversation or today's team call, I want us to talk about time management. Something that I think that we all struggle with is how to balance our time and how to effectively manage ourselves so that we're giving the most to our business, but also to ourselves. And so a really cool concept that Carly Del Carlo shared with me, shared with a lot of the girls on the team, is a concept called time management buckets. And so you're thinking of your time as buckets. So you can kind of do this exercise as I go through it and talk about it, or you can just soak it in and then go through it later. But it's a really cool concept. I know that when I explained it in the team post yesterday, you were kind of like, buckets, like that's a really weird thing. If it helps you, you can think of them as boxes or circles or cups, whatever works for you. We're just thinking of a tangible kind of thing where you can put your time into. So for me, buckets is a really easy concept to understand. So basically, in your daily activities, your daily life, your priorities, you're going to have 5 buckets. And so when you're doing this for yourself, you can write 5 little circles or 5 little buckets on a piece of paper, because I want you to not just visualize it, but actually put it down into practice for yourself. So think of your top 5 priorities in your life and things that are going to be demanding of your time. So you have your 5 buckets. I want you to think of 5 things that you're going to put into them. And I want one of them, the first one should be your own personal health, wellness, general well-being. So your number 1 bucket is going to be you. And I know that this may be something that a lot of us struggle with, because we tend to be givers or nurturers. We're moms, we're, nurses, family members, whatever. We want to put other people ahead of us because most of us just have that compassionate, caring attitude. But I want you to put yourself as number 1. And the reason why that is so important is if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's really hard for us to give the best person to other people. So when we are tired, when we're not doing our own workouts, when we're not getting the proper nutrition, we're failing ourselves, and in turn we're failing others because we can't give our best self. I always explain the analogy when you're on a plane and they tell you, if the life masks come down, put yours on first before you help other people. And I want us to apply that in our lives as well. If you are not taking care of yourself, you can't help others. Your challenge groups will suffer, your family life, your relationships will suffer. You have to be number 1. And it's a weird concept for some of us, but as long as you're taking care of yourself first, then you can give to others more. So I don't want you to sacrifice your own personal well-being for any other priority. So your number 1 bucket is yourself. That bucket is going to be closest to you. Now, when you're doing this bucket exercise, write it down. So what are the general basic things that you need to do for yourself every day? And that's your workout and your eating, your nutrition, your Shakeology, those should definitely be inside that bucket. And then whatever else needs to be there. I would definitely say, your personal development should be there. Whether you do, your devotionals, if you read the Bible, if you, do meditation, yoga, any of that that's personal to you, that in order for you to feel good, to feel your personal best every day, you need to do that, put that in that bucket. And then moving on to our other buckets, I want bucket 4 and bucket 5 should be Beachbody. And Beachbody is going to be 2 buckets because we're going to break it up into 2 different things. One is going to be, bucket 4 is going to be Beachbody building, or your Beachbody team, and then 5 is going to be Beachbody personal, or your Beachbody personal business. Now, for some of you who don't have teams, you don't necessarily have to have a bucket 4 for that team building, or it can be a really small bucket. And 5 would be your personal bucket for Beachbody, and that's where you're going to focus on your own personal sales, reaching and building really great challenge groups, investing in the business where it's some more personal development, watching Beachbody videos, all of that stuff that's helping your own personal business. That fourth bucket that I kind of touched on is that team building bucket. And that's where you're helping to mentor other coaches, helping them achieve their goals, taking on that leadership role. So those are two kind of separate things, and I want you to think of them separately because they do require different energies from yourself. If you don't have, like I said, if you don't have a team or you don't have a really big team right now, you don't necessarily need that fourth bucket, or it can be small. But the reason why we separate them is because they really are two different things that require two different sets of energy and skill and passion. Building a team requires that leadership kind of thing and you helping others. But it's really easy. And I'll tell you, as a diamond, when you reach, diamond, I think we get in this mindset of, oh, I made it. And all I want to do is, team trainings and do team calls and, help my team. But I can't forget that I also have to focus on my own business. If I'm not hitting Success Club every month, if I'm not constantly bringing in new coaches, I'm not going to have anybody to share these team calls with. So the point is to separate the two and still run and build for both of them. If you look at all of the top coaches, the reason why they stay top coaches or they've reached top coach is because every year, not only do they help their team succeed by hitting Success Club and bringing in volume, but they're also personally succeeding themselves by bringing in more coaches from hitting Success Club themselves. So those are two different kind of things that we're going to focus on. Now, if Beachbody, you don't need the fourth bucket at this point if you don't have a team, like I said, or it doesn't need to be big. But think about that fifth bucket, that personal Beachbody, where you are devoting your time to building your own business. If you think that out of your top 5 priorities that Beachbody isn't one of them, that's fine. I'm not saying that every single one of us has to have Beachbody as a top 5 priority in our life. But I challenge you with this: if it's not, and you aren't willing to put it as one of your top 5 priorities, why are you here? And not in a bad way, but if you don't want to devote the time to it, if you're not willing to give at least, one of the 5 areas of your life to be Beachbody, get off the call. There's no point in you wasting time or energy in being here. You have better things to do on a Saturday morning or a Saturday night than be here. I want you to spend your energy and your time doing things that make you happy, that make you fulfilled, that fulfill your passion. And if Beachbody isn't one of them, get off here. There's no point in you wasting your energy doing this. If you want to just be a discount coach, or you like being on here for the team camaraderie and the friendship, you can put that time in a different bucket. You can put that in that friendship bucket, or your personal bucket to, be that discount coach or to have the friends. But if business building isn't on your bucket list, get it out. So that said, Beachbody is going to take up 2 of those buckets. So now you have, or 1 or 2 buckets. So you have 2 additional buckets that you get to fill with your priorities. 2 or 3 additional buckets to fill with your priorities, things that are taking up your time in your life, and things that you want to devote your energy to. And these are going to be more personal to you, and each one of us are going to have a little bit different ones. So one could be, your family or your relationships with your husband, your kids, your friends. One could be work, whatever is really taking up time in your life. For me, obviously, like my full-time job, I don't have an option. Like, I work that 40 hours a week. So 40 hours a week is kind of, a big lump of time. So obviously for me, one of my buckets is going to be that full-time job that I have. My other bucket 2, is going to be friendships and relationships, my family life, my fiance, all of that is going to be in bucket 2. So I have me, my family, my relationships. 3 is my job. 4, and 5 are my Beachbody. And like I said, each one of us is going to have a little bit different buckets, because if you don't have kids, if you don't really have a family, if you're, a college student or whatever, you probably don't have a huge family bucket because you're doing other things. So it could be school, whatever. So fill your buckets. And so when you're doing this exercise, and I want you to actually do it in practice, not just theoretically, get it down on paper. Write out your buckets, and what goes into those buckets, who's in those buckets, what time am I going to devote to those buckets. And then I want you to, I think something that's helpful is if you color code them. The reason why I say this is because colors, and I'm not to get too new agey, but auras, they help you visualize what's going on. So for me, my personal bucket is pink because I like, pink fun things. So when I'm working on me, I think of pink, or I see pink, and it makes me focus on myself. So Beachbody for me is green because I think green, Shakeology, I don't know. Relationships are blue, like loyalty, and it helps me kind of visualize who they are. So I break up my buckets. My buckets are actually circles, but I just write them down on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, and what I'm going to be doing in those bucket activities. And then I want you for at least, I think that for this to really work, I think you should commit to at least 2 weeks of creating those buckets. And then I want you to focus yourself and stay within those buckets. So this is where the challenge, the hard part comes in, is first you've broken down your top 5 priorities, the top 5 things that need time and energy in your life. And now the challenge is to help them or keep them from spilling over. And that's where the bucket concept comes in. Because when you are working on one activity, something that falls under one of these buckets, I want you to pour your whole self into that bucket. So all of your energy is going into that individual bucket. And it can't spill over into anything else. And so you're confined by that bucket. And this is going to keep you from multitasking in a way that's detrimental to the task at hand. As a society, we've gotten into the mindset, if we can text and drive and eat at the same time, or if we can, work and watch TV and be with our loved ones, then we're successful and we're doing all these things together. But at the end of the day, if you can't give your whole self to one of these activities, something is being sacrificed. And usually they're all being sacrificed, and they're all being less than they should be, less than 100%, because you've stretched yourself too thin. And those buckets are going to spill over, dump over, because you aren't able to watch them and dry up, and they spill, and it's just a mess. And so we want to keep our lives clean as much as possible, to devote ourselves to one bucket at a time. So I know that, the biggest thing that I hear is my husband or my boyfriend or my fiance or my girlfriend, whatever, they get annoyed because I'm always on my phone. You got to stop that. And I challenge you for 2 weeks that if you are watching a movie with your loved ones, to put your phone away, to not be working the business. And I do it too. I'm the worst at it. I will be watching TV and, he's like, put your phone away. And I'm like, I'm working, I'm hustling, like I'm doing, and it's like, I'm on Instagram. Like I could do this some other time. So I challenge you to find your buckets and not bleed over, not spill it over into the other ones. And we get into this mindset of, it's okay that I'm not playing with my kid right now, or I'm Facebooking while I'm playing with my kid right now, because I'm building a better life for him or her. And I absolutely agree with that. But he doesn't see it that way. She doesn't see it that way. She doesn't understand that. And so for 2 weeks, I want you to devote your whole self to that little kid bucket, or whatever that bucket is for your friends and your family and relationships. Because when we sacrifice and we let our lives turn into a puddle, basically, it doesn't get us anywhere, and it's a mess. And so I want you to focus your energies into those buckets. What I would suggest doing is putting it somewhere that you can remind yourself. So have your color-coded buckets, what activities are going in there. And then I want you to kind of break down a schedule for yourself. And it kind of depends on how intricate intricate and detailed you are as a person, how much you want to break down your schedule. For me, I know 8 to 5 obviously is going to be my job. Or this and this time I'm going to set out for Beachbody. But if you are the kind of person that likes to do, at 6 o'clock, I will take a shower. At 5, at 2 o'clock, I will do this. I mean, do that if that works for you. But be flexible with yourself to what your personality is. If I, line by line said what I was going to do, I couldn't handle it. But I know like some of you that have planners, like love that, minute by minute, this is what you're going to do and this is what I'm going to eat. And so do what works for you. But stay within that concept of that bucket where you're giving your whole self 100% of your energy, pouring it into that one activity at a time. And I want you to see during those 2 weeks, what changes and how that changes. And I think that you'll notice that when you're devoting yourself to your business completely, things are going to change, and you're able to give your full energy, telling your husband, telling your kids, hey, I need half an hour by myself to go work my business, and sit there and do your business, not look at cats on Instagram, which I'm the worst. But focus. And when you focus yourself, I promise you that, the results are going to be focused. When you give focused energy, you have focused results. And then treat your own self, your own relationships that same way. If you are going to do you time, you go do you, girl. You go shopping, you go take your bath, whatever works for you. But you focus yourself and don't let yourself get distracted. Because like I said, when we wear ourselves too thin or we let those buckets spill, it's just a mess. So I want you to focus on a message instead of a mess, and get yourself prioritized. So create your buckets. If you are a technological person, you can actually, something that's super easy to do is do a note in your iPhone, or Android, I guess, has notes too, but the notes are actual little circles. So that's really easy reminders for you because they look like little buckets or little drops as it is. So I challenge you to implement this in your life at least for 2 weeks, and see the results that it's going to give you. See how it feels to devote yourself 100%. Challenge yourself. No multitasking, no overlapping of activities. Give up yourself 100%. Got it? Okay. Hold on. Let me end this recording.